Next up for 5 minutes, Mr. Erskine-Smith.
Thanks very much. Thank you for being here, Minister. So our committee has recommended imposing a duty on social media platforms to remove manifestly illegal content in a timely fashion, including hate speech, harassment, and disinformation, or risk monetary sanctions. And I just want to read a comment. This was in response to a media article about the hate and threats from the Yellow Vest movement. Interestingly, I think if they knew that the Yellow Vest movement in France was calling for a wealth tax and minimum wage, maybe they wouldn't associate with the Yellow Vest movement so much here in Canada. But they said Trudeau is a traitor to our country and deserves to be hung for his treasonous crimes. And that's posted on Facebook, that's left on Facebook. Facebook doesn't take it down. So should we expect social media companies to act, or should we require them to act?
So I should clarify that my expectations have to fall within the electoral context at this point, as I'm Minister of Democratic Institutions. However, that being said, I think that we are moving in a direction where we need to require social media companies to act. That is outside the scope of my specific mandate right now. But I think that when we have very clear evidence that they are contravening laws here in Canada, that they should be acting responsibly in that manner.
I appreciate that. And so within your mandate, we have C-76, which rightfully creates a registry of ads, both in the writ and pre-writ period. Is there any confidence in the conversations you've had with Facebook and others that they will ensure that that database is as accessible as possible, with journalists in mind specifically?
That is the assurances that I have had from Facebook. I know that all of the social media companies are also looking to speak with Elections Canada to get clarification, because Elections Canada ultimately will interpret the law and determine how that is. But that is my understanding, is that they're trying to make that accessible and available to Canadians.
With respect to C-76, the focus is on transparency of advertising, and that's really important. But there was an interesting comment when Mr. Zimmer and I were in Washington last July for a roundtable, and Senator Warner said when they started looking into this issue, advertising was their main focus, and that turned out to be the tip of the iceberg. And it was actually the hijacking of the algorithms themselves that was the real problem, whether it's the IRA troll farms, the Internet Research Agency troll farms, or some other organizations. How do you see the steps that your office has taken as a solution to that problem?
So I've read Senator Warner's report as well, and I think it's very interesting in this space, and probably one of the better reports that I've read. I tend to see the steps that we've taken as steps to address the problems we've identified so far, and understanding that this is an evolving field, and our understanding of the issue continues to grow. And I will say that, in terms of full disclosure, as minister responsible for this portfolio, when I came into it, I was thinking about hack and leak attempts. Right. And over the course of the past 2 years, what our understanding of the issue has changed dramatically. And so I think that we are right now, as an international community, but also here in Canada, trying to understand the depth and the breadth of the issue, and to come up with solutions that will attack the core of the problem. And that's where I thank the committee for doing the work that you've done, because I think it's really important in informing next steps.
My last question is with respect to, you mentioned hacks, but I read CSE's threat assessment report. I understand there might be a new one forthcoming, but I read the last one, and it said, as I understand it, they said that the electoral system has great integrity and not so worried about Elections Canada being hacked and the voting system being hacked, but that it's us. It's us as political actors that are the great weakness in this, and we've seen MPs and senators already hacked as far as it goes. So when I look at $7 million for a Digital Citizens Initiative, and I think, how's $7 million spent across the country? How are we actually going to educate Canadians between now and October? Wouldn't that $7 million for training purposes and for education purposes actually be better allocated to educate politicians, to educate political staff, to educate volunteers, to educate riding associations, and to make sure that I get the training that I need and my staff and volunteers get the training we need to make sure we are going to prevent our accounts being hacked.
So there's an issue of parliamentary privilege with that, in terms of Parliament gets to decide what information you choose to use and not use. We did in the announcement put out a series of infographics and educational tools that I invite any parliamentarian or Canadian to use and look at as to how best to protect themselves. The CSC, the Cyber Center, which Andre can speak a bit afterwards, is stood up, but will be available for parliamentarians as well as politicians and their political entities, should they so choose to use it. And we will be reinforcing the Get Cyber Safe campaign as well. But I do think that we all have a little bit of ownership and responsibility to make sure that we are demonstrating leadership in this area. And that being said, you can practice the very best cyber hygiene out there and still be a victim of a hack.
Thank
Thanks
you.
very much.
Thank you.